Ontario just made some pretty big housing changes when it comes to how landlords and tenants interact with the Landlord and Tenancy Board here in Ontario. And with the Ford government basically passing this on November 24th, just this week, a lot of questions around what it means for landlords, what it means for tenants, and more importantly, what does it mean for prospective home buyers, investors, and potentially the broader real estate market. This week, I want to take an opportunity and have a conversation around what these changes are and what the implications could be. Once again, thanks for stopping by. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, we invite you to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and don't forget to leave your thoughts, questions, and concerns in the comments section below. More importantly, if you picked up on something new or learned something or know someone that can benefit from this video, please feel free to share it. Let's get right into it. So earlier this week on November 24th, the final reading of Bill 60 passed with the Ford government. And ultimately, amongst other things, a lot of conversation around what it means for landlords, what it means for tenants. What's really important to understand about these changes, especially if you're a tenant, is that if you're in an existing lease or an existing rental agreement, you don't have to worry at this moment because those particular leases are going to be grandfathered in. What the changes are going to be proposed for are for new leases. So if you're a landlord, this doesn't mean that you can start to change the rules effective right away. Ultimately, what it means is that when you find a new tenant, if your tenant leaves or the contract is renegotiated, that will basically move forward. So what we want to emphasize here is that with the Ford government's intent, or at least what I believe the intent to be, is to basically get all these units that were on the sidelines back into inventory, back into the market to help create some more rental units, especially with the fact that builders are not building right now. And more importantly, we're not seeing any new inventory coming to the market. Maybe you're asking yourself, Ant, what are these rules? What do they mean for me as a landlord? What do they mean for me as a tenant? Let's break them down. So if you are a landlord, here are some of the key changes. Faster eviction for non-payment. Notice periods for non-payment are reduced from 15 days now to 7 days. So that's a little bit quicker. More structured LTB, Landlord and Tenancy Board hearings. Tenants can raise new issues at rent arrears hearings unless they've given written notice ahead of time and paid part of their arrears, 50%. Faster decision on finalization. Time to repeat or request a review on appeal of the LTB decision is reduced from 30 days to 15 days. Basically, you can't continue the review process infinitely, right? Reduced compensation requirements. In some cases, landlords no longer have to provide 1 month's rent compensation for landlord-use evictions if they give 120 days notice. And what this really means in simple English is, let's say you own a home and you have a tenant in your basement. If you wanted them to leave or evict them, you would have to give them 1 month's rent to leave. Now, if you give them 120 days notice, you don't have to compensate them with 1 month. Goal is obviously overall to reduce the timelines. The Landlord Tenancy Board changes are meant to speed up the hearings and reduce the backlog and more predictable process. Stricter rules around what can be raised at hearings makes outcomes more straightforward. In the past, there was a lot of misunderstanding. There wasn't very clear definitions, and that is all changing. Now, for tenants, if you are a tenant, here are some of the key changes that you need to be paying attention to. Number one, shorter eviction notice. Non-payment eviction notices drop to 7 days, meaning less time to catch up and avoid eviction. Limited ability to raise rent issues. Tenants must give advance notice to pay part of the arrears to bring up maintenance or repair issues at arrears hearing. So that 50%, like for the landlords. Shorter window to appeal, reduced from 30 days to 15 days, giving less time to file a review or gather evidence. Reduced compensation in some events. Some situations where tenants previously received 1 month's rent in compensation may no longer apply with 120-day notice. Like we talked about the notice that if you have a home and you're giving them the notice 4 months, 120 days out, then you don't have to compensate them to leave. Advocates do warn, however, of increased risk of eviction, and tenant groups believe that the bill reduces protections and may increase housing insecurity. So obviously, right now, what we're seeing is a little bit of a disconnect. There's a lot of conversation on, does this fare well for the tenant? Does it fare well for the landlord? And ultimately, as someone who's been a landlord and someone who deals with landlords, and obviously I deal with tenants who are looking to buy, I hear a lot of stories. And once again, there's good landlords and there's bad tenants, and there's bad tenants and there's really bad landlords. And I mean, at the end of the day, the idea here is that if we want to bring more affordable rental units to the market, when the current state of the building structure or what they're building here in Ontario isn't meeting that demand just yet, well, we need to make some concessions. And ultimately, I think these changes that Ontario is passing here with Bill 60 does bring them in alignment with other provinces across Canada. Now, ultimately, there's some provinces that are a little bit more strict when it comes to these processes. But at the end of the day, I think if we can start to make things a little bit more equitable between landlords and tenants, in the sense that, hey, you don't pay? Well, we still have to take you through the eviction process. However, it's going to get streamlined so that the landlord themselves is not out of rent for that much time, therefore potentially defaulting on their mortgage, and ultimately, at the end of the day, bringing a home that could go into foreclosure, power of sale, for example. And ultimately, that home may sit on the market, it may rent to a family, and that home may no longer be a rental property. This applies to investors, this applies to anyone looking at the particular way of maybe getting an investment property. Or let's say you are a homeowner with that self-contained unit, and once again, you didn't want to bring that unit to the market because you were scared that once that tenant moves into your home, that you have lost control of your property. Well, this may give you that little bit of security to know that, hey, after 12 months, that person doesn't renew month to month, they can be moved out, or you have to sign a brand new lease. And then from there, you can go through the process if they don't want to pay or if they're a bad tenant. Once again, allowing someone to maybe dabble with the fact that, hey, I want to finish my basement, rent it out to offset some of my mortgage costs, so I'm not paying this high amount, and obviously making life a little bit more affordable for them. Now, once again, there's people that may want to do this, that don't want to do this. At the end of the day, it all comes down to your particular circumstance. One interesting thing to pull from this whole conversation, we did a video just a few weeks back talking about the changes from the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions. That's the federal watchdog of all the banks. I mean, ultimately, they're making changes to make it more difficult to finance rental property, especially for smaller investors. And this rule here is trying to sort of bring more inventory to the market. I think there's a little bit of a disconnect here because, I mean, I'm not saying that we need to make things easier for investors. There's a lot of people out there that have a, negative connotation towards investors that, buy properties and rent them out. But at the end of the day, when the government isn't doing it, the government doesn't have the means or the power to actually force builders to build these units. You basically leave it to the hands of the smaller investors that want to build these garden houses, these laneway homes, maybe finish their basement so that they can bring more inventory to the market. I mean, I want to hear from you, your thoughts on that. I mean, you have the federal level of regulation on the banks, making it challenging, but then you have the Ontario government saying, hey, we want you to bring more inventory to the market. But once again, if the financing doesn't make sense, I mean, ultimately, can there be a change here that can sort of help us along the way? Now, once again, just to tie it into how does this apply to individual homeowners, people looking for a mortgage? I mean, in my perspective, as I said, we've talked about it. A lot of individuals wanted to buy a home. They want to buy a single family home. They want to make sure they have a separate entrance. Maybe they have an unfinished basement, maybe they have a finished basement. They want to convert that basement into either an in-law suite where their family can live, or they want to convert it into a potential rental. Or some already have an in-law suite, maybe a situation changed, they want to rent it out. This could potentially be a game changer, especially when you think about how the banks currently approach rental income on an owner-occupied property. Each bank is a little bit different. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to discuss that with you. But at the end of the day, this could make your ability to purchase that home a little bit more affordable, especially if you can utilize that rent to offset the overall cost of the mortgage. And at the end of the day, these are some of the strategies that you could see being deployed that could help move individuals that are maybe on the sidelines back on the sidelines. Not saying that, hey, now's the time to go there and buy. That's a decision you and your family need to make when the time is right for you. Ultimately, we'll be talking a little bit more about that in another episode. But what I could see these rules changing is the amount of people that have homes with potential rental units, bringing them to the market, and those searching for homes with these units may become a lot more desirable, especially now when these rule changes take effect. So I want to hear from you in the comment section below. What do you think about these changes? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. But until next week, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you all next week.